My first guest today has been a friend of the Foundation's for nearly 20 years. And we're going to talk about a program that we call Qualified Charitable Distributions. So at this time, please welcome to the show our financial planner for almost 20 years, Mr. David Schwandt. David, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, Joe. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's the whole aspect of Qualified Charitable Distributions, easy for me to say, right? It's something that we've been looking at, as far as the development team goes, and we think that this is something that our community would really like to learn more about. So thanks for being with us today. So tell us a little bit about it.
Oh, happy to. When Congress passes tax legislation, there's multiple motivations. The primary one, of course, is raising revenue. But there's also a desire by Congress to help motivate taxpayer behavior. And that's where the charitable giving tax advantages, that legislation comes into being. It's to empower and motivate taxpayers to be charitably minded. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly where we find the provisions for qualified charitable distributions. This legislation has not been around all that long, but it's been improved with subsequent iterations after its first passage.
Gotcha. Now, is that something where the donor can also take a charitable gift deduction at that time?
Well, let me spell out some things here.
Yeah.
Qualified charitable distributions allow the taxpayer to take pre-tax money from retirement plan accounts of most types, not all types, mm-hmm. and move it directly to what's called a 501c3 charitable organization.
And if I may, when you're talking about 401ks, IRAs, when you talk about pre-tax?
And some exceptions are what are called SEP plans or simple plans.
Sure.
But other than that, and I'm going to use the term IRA to sort of refer to all of the plans where this is approved. And so the taxpayer has to request directly of the plan administrator mm-hmm. to send X amount of money directly to the charitable organization. It can't come to the taxpayer and then that person gives it to the charity. Mm-hmm. That does create a taxable event for the donor. Now, you have to be age 70 and a half to do this.
All right.
And if the taxpayer is 70 and a half or older, they can actually pass to a charitable org up to $100,000 a year, bypass the pent-up income tax on that money, mm-hmm. but, and here's the answer to your question, cannot also take a charitable deduction. That's called double dipping by the IRS. It's frowned upon.
They won't let that happen.
Yep.
All right.
Now, if there's a joint filing of the tax return and the spouse is also over age 70 and a half, mm-hmm. he or she can also do this up to $100,000 a year.
Gotcha.
Now, where we see this coming into play quite a bit is when people have reached the age where they have to take a required minimum distribution from their IRA account.
And what age is that, David?
Well, it used to be 70 and a half, but now it's 73.
Okay.
And when they do that, the money's being forced out to them because the IRS says, we've given you decades of tax deferral. It's time to collect some taxes on this money.
Sure.
But rather than taking that required distribution or RMD, mm-hmm. the client, the taxpayer can, again, direct that the plan administrator send that RMD directly to the charity.
And in this instance, the National Taxi Foundation.
The National Taxi Foundation. And,
mm-hmm.
and so what that does is it fulfills the RMD requirement, but avoids the tax on that RMD.
Gotcha.
People that are doing this generally aren't real pleased that they're being forced to take the money because they don't need it.
Right.
And this is a great way to satisfy their charitable intent and get a great tax advantage for doing so.
Outstanding. So if I could summarize it, if you're age 70 and a half, you can direct funds pre-tax mm-hmm. to, in this instance, the National Taxi Foundation in support of our vision and our mission. At age 73, it's a mandatory distribution that you have to take, and there would be a tax event along with that, mm-hmm. okay? But once again, you can put that towards the National Taxi Foundation, and that's, once again, that's a deduction then, because it's not it's income you don't need. I guess that's the other important point is at age 73, if you don't need these funds as a part of your everyday living,
Yep.
it's a great way to avoid the tax event by donating to the National Taxi Foundation.
And actually mathematically somewhat more favorable to avoid the tax than to get a deduction.
There you go. There you go. Well, that's really good. I'm glad we've got this information out to our community, David. And for more information, you can reach out to the National Taxi Foundation if you have some specific questions. And by all means, David, we'll probably be reaching back to you with some questions as we get them. But thanks so much for being with us today. It's a great opportunity for those who are in that age bracket of 70 and a half or 73 years of age to help us in our mission, to help support our vision, and maybe even avoid paying some tax.
There you go.
All right. Hey, thanks so much for being with us today, David.
Happy to
All
be
right.
here, sir.
When we return, we'll have the Chief Executive Officer of the National Taxi Foundation, Andrew Rosen. Stay tuned.